Welcome to Armchair Expat, the podcast meant to get you out of your lazy boy and into your new life abroad. I'm Shannon Acton, founder of Bargain Homes Abroad, and I'm riding shotgun as we chase the dream of life beyond borders. Each episode, we'll hear stories from people who've left their comfort zone to explore the world. They'll share their highs, their lows, and their in-betweens, all meant to lovingly light a fire under your bum, so you can stop dreaming about it and start living it. So if you're stuck in your comfy recliner, scrolling through dreamy destinations, wondering what if, it's time to swap that raggedy old armchair for a one-way ticket. Let's freaking go, people. If you've ever dreamed of buying that farmhouse in France or that sun-drenched flat in Portugal, there's one unglamorous but very important detail you eventually have to face: moving large sums of money across borders. And here's the thing, your bank may not be the best place to do it. In fact, most banks quietly tack on hidden fees and margins that can cost you thousands without ever showing you the real exchange rate. That friendly banker who's been with you since your first checking account, great for mortgages, not so great for international transfers. In this episode, I'm joined by Kelly Cutchin, U.S. Country Manager for Moneycorp, who's spent over 20 years helping people buy and sell property around the world. Kelly breaks down exactly how currency exchange works, why using a specialist can save you serious money, and what tools like forward contracts and rate targeting actually mean in plain English. We also dig into where Americans are buying abroad right now, how to plan ahead for your move, and why timing can make a 5-figure difference. And yes, Kelly gives her real cell phone number on air. That's how confident she is about helping you through the process. If you're thinking about buying abroad or preparing for an international move, this conversation might just save you from handing your dream home budget over to the bank. Let's dive in. Hi, Kelly. Welcome to the Armchair Expat podcast.
Hi, Shannon. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to jump into this conversation today. So why don't you just start with a little bit about who you are, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Thank you so much. Always so good to see you, and thanks for having me. My name is Kelly Cutchin. I am the country manager for Moneycorp here in the U.S. I'm actually based in Florida, but work with clients all over the world. And really my tagline over the past 20 years of being with Moneycorp has been that I've helped people all over the world buy and sell real estate all over the world. So I'm really excited to be here with you today and hopefully share some of my experiences.
Wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about Moneycorp, the history, and how you came to be at Moneycorp?
Absolutely. So Moneycorp is a UK-based company. We started in the foreign currency exchange industry in the late 70s. So we've been doing this a really long time. Our headquarters are still in the UK, but now we have offices in 11 different countries. As I said, I've been with Moneycorp now for about 20 years, based here in Florida, but we also have a number of offices throughout the US as well as Canada. And our specialty is simply currency exchange and international transfers. We work with both private individuals as well as corporations all over the world, really just helping people understand the ins and outs of the currency exchange market, helping them with timing of executing their exchanges, and helping people just save money when they do international payments.
So let's take a high-level look at currency exchange for dummies, like 101. What does the average person need to know? Like, when do they need to use a currency exchange? Why would they need to use it? Let's go from there.
So when do they need to use it? Someone needs to use a currency exchange specialist anytime they are making an international transfer. And I would say there is a caveat, right? If you're looking to send $100 to a friend or a family member as a birthday gift in another country, maybe just do it, right? Your Venmo, your Cash App, your something to get really small amounts of money transferred. But anytime you're looking to make a transfer of a large sum, even if it's, $1,000, $5,000, if it's a deposit on a property, if you're buying a house outright, you definitely want to be working with a currency exchange specialist. I'm going to talk a lot about kind of buying property, but I do want your listeners to understand that we do transfers for a lot of other reasons as well, right? We have clients that are receiving inheritance from overseas family members or potentially sending children to study abroad and doing destination weddings. So I apologize in advance if all I talk about is real estate. It is much broader than that, but it's typically what we find a lot of people are interested in right now. But as far as the 101 of Moneycorp and how this kind of industry works, there's something known as the interbank rate of exchange. And this is what a lot of people don't understand. That interbank rate of exchange is the exchange rate that banks are buying and selling billions of dollars of currency at any moment in time. That is not, however, the exchange rate that you or I or any of your listeners would have access to. So what happens is the banks buy the currency at that interbank rate of exchange, but then they sell it to you at a markup or a margin or a spread. Those are all three terms relating to the exact same thing, but it's the profit margin between what they purchased the currency at and what they're willing to sell it to you at. And unfortunately, that margin is the kicker. US banks in particular are typically taking a margin or a spread of no less than 2%. But more commonly, that margin is around 3, 4, 5. We've even had clients that compare to their banks who were taking 7 and even 10% margins. So this is enormous. And those numbers seem quite small, right? Oh, those are all single digit numbers, but a 1% difference is massively affecting your bottom line. And that's something that people, I think, don't often realize. Moneycorp's really transparent in this space, right? So we buy our currency at the same rate as the banks do. We have access to that interbank rate of exchange because we do such large volumes in foreign transactions. Last year, we did nearly $90 billion worth of exchanges. So we buy the currency at the same rate as the banks do, but then we sell it to clients at a less than 1% margin. So we're able to get clients really, really close to the true and actual rate of exchange. We're honest with the fact that there's a profit in there, but then they have no other fees associated with transacting with Moneycorp either, right? So we don't charge transfer fees and anything else like that. So they get exactly what they're told they're going to get, which is always more bang for their buck.
Okay. So just to take a step back and understand kind of the overall percentage, if I'm just Googling, oh, what's the current dollar to euro exchange rate? That's no fees, no markups, anything like that. That's just basically the dollars at this, the euros at this, and this is the average kind of value, right? So
That's
then
correct.
when you're looking to do work with a bank or Moneycorp or anything, then that is actually going to change. You're going in expecting, $1.15 or $1.12. It's going to change based on what the current rate is and then any markups that are in there, correct?
Exactly. I think it's
Okay.
good for people to understand because I get this question all the time. What is your exchange rate today? Well, that depends. What minute are we talking about? Because the
Mm,
exchange rate is live. It's an active market that's constantly evolving. So you do want to be cautious. Time of day matters, day of week matters, time of month certainly matters. So when you're comparing rates, you need to be very specific that it was, this time, let's do it within a very close period of time. But yes, what you're seeing online when you Google the exchange rate is typically the interbank rate. And you would
okay.
absolutely expect for that exchange rate to be slightly different when you do contact your bank or Moneycorp and so on and so forth. But for people that are just starting off and they just want to know a general idea of what we're talking about, yeah, Google's a great place to start to get your head kind of wrapped around what to expect.
Okay. And what are the factors that are affecting that exchange rate in any given day? Like, why is it so volatile and up and down? I mean, it doesn't vary hugely within a day normally,
Yeah,
but what are
normally.
the things that, why does time of day matter? Why does day of week matter? Why does day of month matter? Can you
Mhm.
give us a little insight into what's happening globally that affects that?
It's a really complex answer, actually, because there are so many things that do have an impact on the currency exchange rate. The bottom line is it's based on supply and demand, right? So the more the supply, the less expensive something is. The more the demand, the more expensive something is. But you have to understand that there are big, big corporate transactions happening all day long that are actually taking away from the supply or putting more into the supply. So it's those things that are having an impact on the actual rate of exchange. But the reason people are making decisions to do those large transactions, which ultimately lead to the change in the exchange rate, are all over the place, right? So you have things like interest rate decisions. Well, if I know the interest rate is better in currency X versus currency Y, well, then I'm going to take all of my money and put it in that currency so that there's more return on that investment, right? So interest rates are a huge factor. Political stability, recessions, GDPR, unemployment rates that get published, right? It just changes people's confidence in one market versus the other. So the reason people and big corporations do these big transactions are vast, right? And so that's why the currency specialists that every client is assigned here at Moneycorp has their finger really close to the pulse on all of those things, right? They're listening to the news constantly. They're doing the research constantly. They're subscribers to key things out there that are feeding them the information, which they know is going to potentially move the needle. This way, listeners, clients, whoever, don't have to feel like they need to know what's happening around the world to help them make this educated decision. The currency specialist is there to kind of give them the key points that we think that are going to determine the exchange rate. And effectively, we're not here to tell you move your money today or move your money tomorrow. But what we are here to do is kind of give you the facts and say, hey, based on historical data, when this has occurred previously, this is what the effect on the exchange rate has been. Do you think you want to maybe go ahead and buy your euros today? Or should we hold off and wait till after that election happens because we think this is what's going to happen with the exchange rate?
And when someone is a customer of Moneycorp, are you getting that actual, advice or one-on-one support, or is this more in general?
Every customer that establishes an account with Moneycorp, no matter the size of your transfer, is introduced to a dedicated currency exchange specialist. So whether the client's question is one-off or they're going through something super complicated and they just want a hand to hold throughout the entire journey, they will have a dedicated person to speak to, which I think honestly speaks volumes. Most of the clients that we're speaking to right now, in a lot of instances, this is their very first time doing something like this. They're excited, but they're also nervous. This is a lot of money. This is my life savings. We're selling my US property. We're buying in France. It's a big amount of money, and clients want to make sure that they're not doing the wrong thing. So the currency specialists are there as a hand to hold or to provide guidance along the way, no matter how much or little someone wants to utilize that resource.
And how is that different from other transfer companies or currency exchange companies that are out there? Is that pretty unique?
It's very unique. I think one thing is most foreign exchange companies, if I'm honest, that are out there are headquartered in the UK, as is Moneycorp. The difference being is that we do have on the ground local representation. So when you speak to your currency specialist, you will be speaking to someone that is in the US, right? So they understand how banking and unique things occur here in the US, but separately, they are very much experts on how to get payments to where they need to go on the other side of the pond, so to speak. Most other foreign exchange companies, no matter where you are in the world, your currency specialist will be on their trading floor in London. And that's great. There are wonderful people that work on many different London trading floors. But do they really understand how a title company works here? Because they don't have that in the UK. Or do they really understand the difference between an ACH payment and routing numbers? Because again, they're more familiar with working with SWIFT codes and IBANs. So Moneycorp has the local knowledge and the global expertise to hopefully streamline the experience for clients and make things go a lot smoother. And then the other thing I'd mention is there's also companies out there right now that are very app based or
Hmm.
AI based. And again, I think it's a great resource for people that are sending small amounts of money. I don't need to talk to anybody. I'm sending my kid $200 to help them pay their bills while they're studying abroad. I guess I'm being nice there saying 200. Shannon, we both have college kids. I should add a zero there, right? But you get the point. If it's something simple and I just want to do it myself real quick, then maybe an app is for you. But again, doing these larger transactions, most of the clients that we're speaking to, they want a phone call. They want to speak to an actual human. And that's where we really shine.
Okay, that's great. When someone is considering using their own bank or a bank versus Moneycorp, like how transparent are the bank fees? Can they find that information readily? Can you compare and contrast as a consumer? Like, I banked with XYZ my whole life and it's just easier. I don't have to deal with it. But is there a way for them to kind of see and compare, like, I might be saving myself thousands, tens of thousands? How do the banks handle that?
We get that question all the time or that comment all the time, right? People will say, Oh, but Bob, my banker, I've known him, when I opened my account when I was 16. And it's like, yeah, at the end of the day, Bob has done a great job for you when it came to checking savings, maybe helping you with an investment account, getting a credit card, maybe even getting a mortgage on your US property. But how much has Bob done when it comes to international transactions? And the reality is probably pretty little. So one, that's an important thing to consider, because when you ask a bank what the exchange rate is, I've heard this a lot. Banks will often say, let me transfer you to our mortgage department because they can give you a quote on the interest rate. And remember, we're not talking about interest rate, but because they don't get asked enough about exchange rates, by default, their brains think mortgage or interest rate. So one, you're talking to people that don't understand even the question that you're asking. Two, what they sometimes tell you is, oh, our international transfer fee is X. And X might be $20, $30, $50, but they're not being transparent on the margin on the exchange rate. And they probably don't even realize that on the back end, their bank is going to take that margin. So people call me all the time and say, well, I think I'm just going to use my bank because they typically only charge me $20 to do an international transfer. Bob, the banker, told me actually there's no fees. He's going to waive the transfer fees for me. It doesn't matter. There's this margin that is the most important thing when it comes to facilitating these transactions. And I'll say other clients have informed us that when you ask your bank what the exchange rate is, they're often told, we can't tell you that information. We're not quite sure. But once we do the transaction for you, you'll then be able to pull up your statement and see the exchange rate that you got.
Mm.
How scary is that, right? And how much do I send? I'm buying $100,000 property. I need to put down a €50,000 deposit. How much do I send to make sure that I get the right amount? So without that transparent ability, you're really left in the dark and at the mercy of whatever profit the bank wants to give you. But it depends, right? Sometimes you are able to get a decent quote out of the bank, and we always encourage, fantastic. Then immediately contact your currency dealer and see if they can get you something better.
Okay. And how easy is it to set up an account through Moneycorp?
So easy. Anyone that started listening, they could have been done and set up by now. So opening an account with Moneycorp takes less than 5 minutes. It's a quick registration process.
And what is the difference between opening up a bank account versus a Moneycorp account? Like, how is that different? How is that differentiated?
So to set up an account with Moneycorp, there's a few simple questions that we ask: name, address, phone number, and you should be able to open an account straight away. In some instances, we would require a couple documents, nothing overly complicated though. One would be a photo ID, and one might be a utility bill or something just saying, yeah, this is who I am and this is where I live. So those are the only two pieces of information that we're really verifying. We don't run a credit check or anything like that. But I think it's also important for people to know that there's no minimum deposit. You don't have to put money into this account in order to set it up. People often ask, what's the best time to set up an account with Moneycorp? The earlier, the better, right? So that you can get the benefit of the full range of services that Moneycorp offers, targeting a rate. We can even talk about locking into a rate. But 6 months to a year is prime time, right? If you're 6 months to 1 year away from doing something, I definitely want to talk to you now. And again, you don't need to put any money in the account in order to start reaping the benefits. So I would say that's the biggest difference between opening an account with Moneycorp versus a bank.
Okay. And so right now we're seeing a big rise in interest with Americans either purchasing properties abroad or moving abroad. And I know that you and your team have been kind of boots on the ground in Europe and abroad talking to Americans. So what are you seeing are the biggest places of interest that Americans are moving?
I actually wrote it down because I thought you might ask me that. So the biggest places that we're seeing clients express an interest in going currently continue to be France, Portugal, and Spain, probably in that order, but Europe. And I would say secondary, then you have Italy and Greece, probably in that order. So France, Portugal, Spain, Italy, Greece. You then also have places like Mexico. And then I put other, because then there's just those others that are going to places like Malta, Thailand, Malaysia, and so on and so forth. But concentration currently for us is still very much European dominated.
And would you say those are people that are actually moving or just purchasing properties, or a good mix of both?
It's a good mix of both, but if I had to say which direction the needle was, I think a lot of these people are actually intending to move.
Mm, okay. So let's walk through. I'm a person, I found this gorgeous place in France that I want to purchase. What do I do?
Absolutely. So, first and foremost, you're probably going to begin working with an estate agent, right? A realtor there. You're going to be able to tell them your search criteria, your budget, the region. Or if you don't know about the regions yet, you're going to reach out to maybe some friends or someone on the ground that can try to give you a bit of some guidance on, hey, here's where you should look, here's where you should avoid based on your interest, right? If you love the beach, well, let's talk about the south of France. If you hate the city, then let's not talk about Paris, So you just need to kind of get an understanding of what you like. And then obviously you can start that search. But you're also going to want to make sure that you're talking to a tax consultant, right? At the end of the day, taxes are everywhere. We can't avoid them. So you do want to speak to an international tax consultant. Again, people tell me, yeah, but I've used Dave, my tax guy, for 30 years. Well, yes, on your domestic taxes. And I'm sure Dave is great. But when it comes to the international component, you want to speak to someone that's a specialist in that space and potentially a specialist that's specific to the country that you're hopeful to go to, because you want to know what the specific tax implications are in that region way before you decide to buy a property. And thirdly, you're going to want to talk to some kind of immigration consultant or visa consultant, right? So just because we want to buy a house in France and go live in France, unfortunately, it doesn't mean we can just pack up and move. We want to make sure that we're going through the right activities and at the right timeline, right? You can kind of get messed up here. If you accidentally do something before you were supposed to do it because you just got excited, which is totally something that I would do, it can actually backfire on you. So have lots of conversations, attend lots of webinars, seminars, talk to friends, ask people. People are willing to give you free advice constantly, right? So reach out to people, ask lots of questions, ask the same questions to multiple different people, right? There's no better way to instill confidence than to get the same answer from multiple different people. So, yeah, do your research. Once you do kind of get further along in the process and you decide, all right, great, I'm buying this property in France. France is where I want to go. You want to definitely be having those conversations with a currency specialist at that point, right? One, we can tell you what the exchange rate is today. Even if you're not closing on that property for 6 months' time, Moneycorp can start monitoring the exchange rate on your behalf, because I can guarantee you that the exchange rate is going to fluctuate for you between now and the actual time that you need to make any transfers. So why not monitor it or have someone monitor it on your behalf so you can hopefully hedge your foreign exchange exposure here, right? If all of a sudden the rate moves in such a way that it's too good to be true, but you're not closing for another 6 months, well, then let's go ahead and buy those euros for you and just have them sitting there for you, ready to go in 6 months' time. What I'd hate to see is you go, oh no, I'm not ready yet. And then you just sit and do nothing. And then in 6 months' time, the exchange rate's 10 cents worse than what it was today. And you could have gotten rid of that risk. So those are a couple of the things that I would do, Shannon, if you are you're ready to go. Talk to your local realtor, speak to a tax consultant, talk to a visa specialist, and talk to Moneycorp.
Great. You touched on what sounds like a forward contract. Can you explain what that is and how that works?
Absolutely. So there's two basic types of contracts. One is a spot contract and one is a forward contract. A spot contract is basically, I want a different currency and I want to go ahead and do this relatively soon. Here's my dollars. Moneycorp gives you your euros, pounds, Canadian dollars, whatever the other currency is that you need. A forward contract allows you to go, wow, I really like the exchange rate now. I want that rate, but I don't need those funds until a future date. So a forward contract allows you to lock into today's rate of exchange for future availability. So there's a couple of things that we have to know in order to agree a forward contract. One, we need to agree on the exchange rate. So today's rate, here you go. This is what we can get you right now. The second thing we need to know is how much money are you wanting to convert at this rate of exchange? So we need to know an amount. And then the third thing that we need to know is, when do you need that foreign currency available for you? And that date is for two purposes. One, it's the date we're going to give you all of that foreign currency and give you access to it to send off to wherever you need it to go. But that date also determines the date in which you need to send us your balance, right? To book a forward contract, you do need to provide a 10% deposit, but that deposit offsets the total amount that you're looking to transfer. But that's the great news. You only need to put in 10% in order to lock into this rate. And then you can leave your other 90% balance in your interest-bearing accounts, in your investment accounts, in your real estate that you haven't closed on yet. And then come that future date, you would send in your 90% balance. And on that day, the foreign currency balance becomes available for you. You can hold a balance in your Moneycorp account. So let's say that day comes and you go, oh, well, I was intending for my closing to happen now, but actually it's been pushed out 3 months. I don't need those euros yet. Well, then that's fine. You can just leave those euros on your Moneycorp account and we'll send them out whenever you're ready for them. We can do a forward contract for up to 2 years.
Okay. Can we use some round numbers? Let's say, just say the house is 100,000. Your closing date is hopefully 8 months out because, it does take a little bit longer than we're used to in the United States. Can we go through what that process looks like? And if we're doing a forward contract, let's use some round numbers and why it would make sense to do it because of the fluctuations that can happen.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, you're going to set up your account with Moneycorp early on in the process. So even though you're not closing for 8 months, let's get that out of the way now. 2, you're going to start to build a relationship with your currency exchange specialist. 3, that specialist can start to monitor the rate for you, and they can potentially target a rate of exchange for you that is better than what's available today, right? So for conversation's sake, let's say the exchange rate today is 117. And you go, well, it's okay. But if we saw this rate get to 114, I would be ready to go. Well, great. Between now and the next several weeks, your currency dealer is going to watch the market for you. And if that target rate becomes available, we're going to proactively reach out to you. Clients love this because there's a laundry list of to-dos that you need to go get on with. And we're going to watch this part for you. And you're not going to wake up and go, oh, man, I wish I would have known the rate did this, this, and this. We're going to proactively reach out to you. So in the event the currency dealer reaches out to you and says, hey, great news, Shannon, that target rate of 114 is available, you can then say, okay, great. I think I want to go ahead and buy all my euros, in which case you do a spot contract, you send us the dollars and you buy your euros. Or you might go, wow, let's talk about a forward contract because I want to lock into that rate, but I don't need the money for 8 more months. In that case, the currency dealer will give you guidance on going ahead and agreeing that exchange rate, you then sending us that 10% deposit, and then determining that date in 8 months when you're going to send through the balance. So people get hung up on this as well because I think it's a really good hook that I have, right? I can tell you we can lock into the rate for up to 2 years and it sounds great and it stirs up a lot of conversations, which are wonderful. The reality is that most clients engage in a forward contract when we're more like 3 to 6 months, right? A lot of people say, I don't know what I'm having for dinner tonight, much less do I know what I'm doing in 2 years' time. But when you start to get closer to, all right, I've got my scouting trip done, I've got my property picked out done, this is when people start to really get serious about monitoring the rate and doing a forward contract. So 2 years sounds great. Most clients are looking more at a 3 to 6 month forward contract.
What happens in that 2-year period? Say something happens, their plans change. It is a contract. So how does that work if something happens?
Great question. And that's exactly why we take the 10% deposit. It is a deposit that offsets your total transfer. But the reason we take that 10% deposit is we're not promising you today's exchange rate is going to be available for you in 2 years. Effectively, what Moneycorp is doing is we're going to forward purchase $100,000 worth of euros for you today, and you only need to give us a 10% deposit. It's kind of like a line of credit, right? We've bought that for you. You've only given us a 10% deposit. And as long as you stick to the contract and you give us the 90% at the term, then the full balance becomes available for you. But we understand that life happens, right? Things fall through. Okay, never mind. We no longer need those euros. We then would need to sell those euros that we've pre-purchased for you back into the foreign exchange market. And if the rate has fluctuated in such a way where we encounter a loss, we end up with less than what we started, then we would use that 10% deposit to cover any loss that we encountered. Of course, if the exchange rate hasn't changed at all, if it's exactly the same, then great, we sell it back, we end up exactly where we started, and you get your whole 10% deposit back. And of course, there is also that scenario where we sell the euros back and we actually end up with a profit, right? We ended up with more than what we started. Good news is you get your whole 10% back. Good news for me too. I get to go buy a new pair of shoes, right? No, but you at least get your whole 10% back, and then Moneycorp would make that profit. But again, because clients typically aren't engaging in a forward contract for 2 years, it's not that common when someone would cancel because they're doing a forward contract when they're really positive that things are going to happen. But there is that rule in place so that everyone's protected, right? If we have to sell the currency back, we have that 10% deposit to cover the loss.
Okay. And what happens if you do a forward contract and then surprise, the rate gets even better? What happens then?
Again, because a forward contract means we're going to go ahead and buy the currency today at today's rate of exchange, you are locked into that rate of exchange. So we can't go, oh, today it's better. Great. We're going to give you that better rate. We already bought the currency at that rate. So this is why I think it's really important to speak to a specialist, because a forward contract is not right for everybody. It might be monitor the rate, target a specific rate, and when that rate becomes available, you buy it, right? If you're going to obsess with, oh my gosh, I bought the currency today, but the next day it moved 0.001 in my favor, like at some point you just have to be okay with your decision, buy the currency and buy the property of your dreams, which was your ultimate goal to begin with. But, you can speak to your currency specialist to go, all right, the rate moved, far more favorable for me. And you could speak to your currency dealer about canceling this contract and re-engaging in a different contract, but there might be a loss. And so you just have to calculate if the gain on the second contract is greater than the loss. So, but your currency specialist is there to help you figure all that out. You don't have to sit there and try to crunch numbers on your.
Okay. And you mentioned you can hold exchanged money, or let's just say I have American dollars and want to exchange them. I can hold the euro in my Moneycorp account until such later time. How does that differ from a bank account?
So having an account with Moneycorp, I explain it to people often like this. It's like having a multi-currency bank account, right? You can have US dollars in it. You can hold some euros. You can have British pounds in it. You can have some Canadian dollars. Moneycorp can do 120 different currency pairs. So if anyone is listening and they're going, oh, they can only help Americans go into Europe, that's not the case. If you're in the UK and you're buying in Canada, we can help with that as well. We're just trying to think of the audience here and imagining that it's mostly Americans potentially looking at the places that I mentioned earlier. So when you have a bank account, oftentimes you're issued a debit card, right? And we don't have the ability to give you a debit card for you to spend the money that's in your Moneycorp account. You would effectively send US dollars into your Moneycorp account in the US. So you would not need to do an international transfer. It's US dollars into US dollars in the States. We do the conversion into the foreign currency, but you will ultimately need to give us instructions of where to send those funds, right?
Okay.
We can send the funds directly to who ultimately needs to receive them. So we can send money directly to the notaire for when you're purchasing a property in Paris, or we can send a payment directly to the tax consultant that you're working with in Portugal, right? So Moneycorp can disperse payments on your behalf. And ultimately, if you do open up an overseas bank account, you can use Moneycorp to fund that bank account. But you
Okay.
would ultimately want an overseas bank account if you were going to spend a substantial amount of time in any country, because you're going to want to have the ability to go to the supermarket and have access to your cash. And again, without me having the ability to, you can't go to an ATM and withdraw money from your Moneycorp account. You'd want to have a bank that can issue you a debit card so that you can go about with your everyday spending. That's the
Okay.
biggest difference between having an account with Moneycorp and needing an actual bank account at some stage.
Okay, that makes sense. So someone who is, let's go through a couple different scenarios and just say there may be a retiree who is on Social Security, there may be someone who is an entrepreneur and they have money in an American bank account. can they use Moneycorp to directly receive those funds and then put them into their foreign bank account? Like, how does that work?
It does. So as soon as they set up an account with Moneycorp, we're immediately going to give them our US dollar bank account instructions. And they can then turn around and either set up reoccurring payments from their American bank into their Moneycorp account so that on a regular basis, we can convert them and send them to wherever they're now spending time. Or they can instruct the payee to, in the future, pay the funds directly into Moneycorp, right? So Social Security, don't send the money to my Wells Fargo account, send the money directly to my Moneycorp account. Here are my bank account details with Moneycorp. So we do have the ability to directly receive funds from third parties into your account. The really cool thing is just because you receive money on a monthly basis does not mean that you have to convert your funds on a monthly basis, right? And this, of course, is case by case, because if you're living on a tight budget and you need that money every month, well, then yeah, it might be dollars in, convert, euros out. However, if you get into a situation where you go, all right, I'm kind of okay right now. I don't need any additional euros. I can, feed myself on what I have right now. Maybe it makes sense for you to start collecting 6 months worth of dollars into your Moneycorp account and only convert them when the rate improves for you, right? You'd hate to do it this month if the rate is 120, right? Maybe you want to go currency dealer target 117 for me. And that might be after I've collected 3 months worth of payments in there, but then I'll convert it. But I don't want to just convert at 120 because that's the rate today. Do know that you have the flexibility. Whereas if you go to your bank, you just have to do it on the day. They're not going to go, well, I'll call you back if the rate gets any better, or what rate would you like to achieve? And we'll give you a call. You just have to do it. When you're ready, you do it. With Moneycorp, you can collect those dollars and we can convert them at a future date if it makes sense.
Okay. And is that money that you're holding in your Moneycorp account, is it insured, similar to a bank account, or how does that work?
It is insured. So we bank with the big banks, right? We bank with Bank of America and JP Morgan Chase here in the United States. And while your funds are in those accounts, you're definitely protected under FDIC insurance. However, FDIC insurance, I believe, cuts off at $250,000. Whereas with Moneycorp, actually, your full amount is protected because of the type of accounts that we hold customer funds in. We hold customer funds in client safeguarded accounts, which effectively means at no point are those funds Moneycorp's assets. We can only do with those funds what our customer instructs us to do with those funds. So I would hazard to say that having an amount of money that's greater than $250,000 in your Moneycorp account is safer than having your money all in a traditional bank account.
Okay. However, you're not earning any kind of interest or anything like that,
That's
right?
correct. So that's the
Okay.
second part. While your funds are with Moneycorp, they're in these client safeguarded accounts, which are similar to escrow accounts. So they are non-interest bearing. So we don't have a ton of clients that just leave large sums of money on their Moneycorp accounts for extended periods of time because they're non-interest bearing. But we do have some clients that do that. And everyone's reasons are different, but perhaps it's because they don't have a European bank account yet, right? And therefore they need to park them there. Maybe they've sold their US property and they just wanted to get those US dollars sent straight into Moneycorp. And the reality is there's a lot of people that aren't really earning interest on their money. So therefore they're like, I'm not losing anything by having my money in Moneycorp. So
Okay. Okay. And I assume when we talked about third parties earlier, if anybody has like a money market account, a 401k, those all connect and you can send from any one of your number of accounts, not just bank accounts, but any of your
Vanguard,
assets.
Morgan Stanley,
Okay.
so on and so
They
forth.
can all go
They
through
can
and
all
connect.
transfer their funds directly to Moneycorp. I think I'll point out here, because I just want to make sure there's no confusion. Moneycorp cannot pull money out of your account. So you're not going to give us your Bank of America details and we're going to go in there and debit them. You do need to initiate that transfer into Moneycorp. So you've got to push it. We will not pull the money out of your account.
Okay. That was one of my questions.
You can, of course, set up reoccurring things of that nature, or instruct somebody else to put money into your Moneycorp account. But again, we're not pulling money out of your bank accounts.
That's great. Do you have a banking, interface, or how does that work?
So every customer that sets up an account with Moneycorp does have access to their account online. It's basically Moneycorp online. So you'd be able to log into your account and see all of your balances in one place. You can also add recipients in there, right? So I can add my attorney's details, the notaire's details, my mother's details, whoever I'm going to send money to, I can add all of that information into the account so that I can easily select that person and send money to them in the future. You can also see your Moneycorp account details online. And that way you could basically just copy that information and send it to your Morgan Stanley, your Vanguard, your et cetera, to have them send money into your Moneycorp account. We can
Okay.
also send it to your currency specialist is also going to send it to you in a PDF, right? So you're going to have access to that information. If you ever needed to have a different currency sent into your account, we can do that as well, right? So let's say you decide to buy a property in Spain and you're renting it out on a monthly basis and you're ending up with a positive cash flow. Well, then you can have those euros. You could effectively have your tenant pay your euros directly into your Moneycorp account. And that way we can convert the euros into dollars and send them back to your US bank account. So we're not only talking about one directional transactions, they can go both ways.
Okay. What are the most common questions that you get every single day from Americans or anyone in general? But since the audience is mainly
Yeah.
Americans, what are your questions?
So I think the first thing is, why would I use you compared to my bank? Which I love that question because it's just this people in the US aren't familiar with doing international banking. Someone in the UK does not ask that question because everyone in the UK has converted currency their entire life and they have zero trust in their banking system and they know their bank is going to charge them left, right, and center for everything. So they don't even need to ask that question. Here in the US, we're a bit more immature with understanding how this works. And so people do still ask, why would I use Moneycorp versus my bank? My bank said they weren't going to charge me any fees. But again, I love being able to come back and educate them. You're right, but we're talking interbank rate versus the bank rate versus Moneycorp's rate on the actual margin. So that's a great one. Oh, goodness. Can you send funds to a third party? What people often think they need to do is transfer money into their European bank account first, but then they get scared because they go, but I don't have a French bank account yet. And we have to explain to them, no, it's okay. Actually, Moneycorp can facilitate those payments for you prior to you having a French bank account. So we can send the payments directly to the notaire, the attorney, whoever the money needs to go to. So I think that's something that people often ask. Can I still use Moneycorp even though I don't have an overseas bank account set up yet? And then, yeah,
Mhm.
it's really just around safety and security. I mean, they really want to talk to the same person every time. They want to be able to pick up the phone and speak to a human. So they want to make sure that they have direct access to picking up the phone, sending us an email, and speaking to somebody about their money transfers.
So historically, what are we seeing right now for someone who's not really following what it was a couple of years ago, exchange rates between both the euro and the dollar and the euro and the British pound? What are we seeing today versus a couple of years ago, and how is that affecting people's purchase power?
So I think right out the gate this year, we started to see a declining dollar, right? So it wasn't that long ago that we were all excited, right? Because the euro dollar was 1 to 1, right? And we had tons of people, for the record, that did forward contracts at that point or who went ahead and bought their euros at that point, even though they didn't even have plans to go on a scouting trip yet. They just knew that this was too good to be true and they wanted to take advantage of the exchange rates. That's not here at the moment. We have seen a declining US dollar. And I think the market is really speaking to the fact that we're probably going to continue to see additional declining of the US dollar. However, anytime there is a decline, there are these short little shoots, right? So something will happen, someone will do a transaction, and we will see these little market movements. So I think even over the course of the past 5 days, actually, the dollar has gained in value, very little, right? But we started to see the dollar move in the opposite direction and get stronger. But I think when you look at the kind of more longer term, the market does seem to lean towards additional decreasing in US dollar. But as far as how that's determining people's decisions, I think we're just to a point where people's decisions are made. They want to go, right? It's like the pair of shoes you really want. Like, I really want them. I don't care what they cost. I'm not going to wait until they go on sale. I'm just going to buy them. And that's really how we're seeing buying behavior right now. People know they want to move to France. And yes, they know the rate is ballpark where it is. They're still just going. I would say that what I don't see happen a lot is someone really focused on maybe going to Mexico and then going, well, wait a second, now the euro is better. Maybe I need to start looking at Europe instead of Mexico. I feel like typically people have their country, or at least their continent,
Yeah.
kind of a bit more picked out than that. And therefore, little market volatility isn't going to entirely shift the fact that they're now going to go to a Latin American country versus something else. So yes, the exchange rate may determine your budget a little bit, but most customers, once they decide, yeah, it's Europe, little movements aren't going to change their overall decision to move to that country.
So if there are 3 takeaways for the audience to have, what would you say they are?
1, call me today. No, I would say, do take the time to set up an account with Moneycorp because it is free and there's no obligation to use the account and there's no minimum deposit or anything, right? So there's no harm in setting up that account and having a conversation with someone else to bounce ideas off of. But at that point, your currency dealer can at least help you target a rate of exchange. They can help you to come up with a plan. And I'd say the third thing is don't wait, right? Don't wait until the last minute. You're never going to win when you wait till the last minute to do this. Everything seems easy until you actually start to do it, right? So I'd say just plan ahead, get things in order. And that way it can just be more enjoyable journey, right? Why put yourself under the stress? If you call me on a Thursday and say, I'm closing on my property tomorrow in Spain, well, yeah, we're all going to have to kind of get into panic mode and get that done for you, which we can do. But wouldn't it be much better if I'm speaking to you 3 weeks in advance and you say, yeah, I'm buying this property, I'm closing at the end of the month. And we can say, great, let's get everything in order. Let's make sure the funds get there 3 days before closing. And that way there's just a lot less stress. I promise it's a much more enjoyable journey. And I'd say a lot of people don't realize the difference in holidays, right? If you're trying to buy something in Spain and you think you're going to have something done on the Tuesday, well, guess what? The country might be closed down on Tuesday and Wednesday of that week for some national or even regional or even like village holiday. And so you do want to just make sure that you have these things aligned in advance so that, again, just sit back and enjoy the ride.
Right. Doesn't have to be 2 years in advance, but a couple weeks is always good, right?
It's nice. It's nice.
Great. Kelly, thank you so much for joining us. You're a wealth of information. I so appreciate you sharing all of this. And for anyone who wants to get in touch, I'm going to have links in the show notes, but can you share where people can find you?
Yes. So please, people always say, oh, I don't want to call you and bug you, but please call me, email me. I always will do my best to make myself available. My phone number, I'm going to give you my cell phone here because that's how much I love Shannon. But my cell phone is 863 207 6616. And my email is simply my first name dot last name, Kelly.Cutchin at moneycorp.com. Don't hesitate to call me, email me. We can set up a Zoom chat. We can talk specifics, but I really just want to be a part of your journey, even if it's a tiny, tiny discussion. I'm really interested to hear where people are at with their journeys, where they're looking to go. And if I can make any introductions or help anyone save even a small amount of money, then I feel like my job is done.
And I promise you what Kelly is saying is 100% true. I mean, you are always there. You're always available. And I think, that's a whole new level of trust providing your cell phone on a podcast. And we appreciate that. And we know that we can lean on you. So thank you, Kelly.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And that's it for today's episode. Thanks for listening and spending some time with us. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Make sure to follow the show and leave a review. It will really help others find us. And if you're dreaming about a life abroad or already living it, I'd love to hear from you. You can connect with me on Instagram at bargainhomesabroad or on our website, www.bargainhomesabroad.co. Until next time, keep exploring, keep dreaming, and I'll see you back in the armchair soon. Bye-bye.